Inside most large US companies right now, the most important decisions aren't being made in public announcements or strategy presentations. They're being made behind closed doors, in budget meetings where different teams are fighting for the same limited dollars. These internal budget battles are quietly reshaping what companies actually prioritize in 2026, often in ways that never show up in official messaging. For years, budgeting was relatively straightforward. When revenue grew, most departments expected their budgets to grow too. Strategy discussions focused on expansion, new initiatives, and future opportunities. Trade-offs existed, but they were manageable because capital felt abundant. That environment no longer exists. Today, growth is less predictable, costs are stickier, and uncertainty is higher. Budgets aren't expanding automatically anymore. In many companies, they're flat or only growing marginally. That forces real choices. When one team wins funding, another often loses it. And those internal fights are changing which priorities survive. One of the first things these budget battles are doing is shifting power away from vision-driven projects toward execution-driven ones. In the past, ambitious initiatives with big narratives could secure funding based on potential alone. In 2026, potential isn't enough. Projects have to show clear, near-term impact or strong downside protection. This is why initiatives tied to cost control, efficiency, and risk reduction are winning more often than bold transformation programs. When budgets are tight, leadership favors certainty over possibility. Finance teams are central to this shift. CFOs and finance leaders aren't just approving budgets anymore, they're actively shaping priorities. Their questions carry more weight. How fast does this pay back? What happens if demand softens? Can this be paused without damage? Projects that can't answer those questions struggle to survive internal scrutiny. As a result, company priorities are becoming more grounded. Spending is flowing toward areas that stabilize the business rather than stretch it. Forecasting tools, data infrastructure, automation, and process improvements gain influence. Experimental initiatives and long-dated bets face higher hurdles. These budget fights are also revealing which priorities were real and which were supported by easy money. In good times, companies could fund overlapping initiatives without making hard choices. In tighter conditions, those overlaps disappear. Programs that exist mainly because they've always existed are being questioned. Long-running initiatives with unclear impact lose protection. Meanwhile, functions that help companies operate under stress gain credibility. Budget pressure has a way of exposing reality. Another major effect is how initiatives are being designed. Teams have learned that all-or-nothing proposals rarely survive anymore. Instead, projects are broken into phases. Pilot programs replace full rollouts. Funding is released in stages. This changes priorities toward reversibility. Leaders want the option to pause or redirect without embarrassment if conditions change. That mindset spreads across the organization, influencing how teams plan and execute. Internal budget fights are also reshaping how growth is pursued. Sales and marketing teams still push for expansion, but they face tougher questions. Growth that requires heavy upfront spend, aggressive hiring, or long payback periods is harder to justify. Growth initiatives now have to prove they won't destabilize cash flow or margins. That constraint favors incremental growth over dramatic moves. Technology spending highlights this shift clearly. AI and automation projects compete fiercely for budget share. But not all AI wins. Projects tied directly to efficiency, forecasting accuracy, or cost reduction are favored. AI framed as experimentation or long-term innovation struggles. The message inside companies is clear. Intelligence that improves control gets funded. Intelligence that promises future upside without immediate benefit does not. These internal battles are also changing talent allocation. Instead of hiring broadly, companies are reallocating existing people toward priority initiatives. Teams are merged, roles are consolidated. Fewer new positions are approved. This reshapes which skills are valued. Employees tied to optimization, analytics, and coordination gain influence. Roles tied purely to expansion lose leverage. Over time, this changes company culture. Decision-making becomes more data-driven. Assumptions are challenged earlier, proposals are stress-tested before they reach senior leadership. The upside is better discipline. The downside is slower momentum. Internal budget fights also affect how strategy is communicated. Leaders become more cautious with language. Instead of announcing sweeping transformations, they frame initiatives as efficiency improvements, resilience upgrades, or capability enhancements. This isn't just spin. It reflects what budgets will actually support. Another subtle effect is how cross-functional collaboration evolves. To win funding, teams must show enterprise-wide impact. That encourages collaboration in theory, but in practice, it also creates competition between functions. Marketing competes with technology. Operations competes with innovation. Growth competes with stability. These tensions reshape priorities toward what leadership believes the company needs most right now. Companies that manage these tensions well emerge sharper and more focused. Those that don't become fragmented, with teams fighting internally instead of executing externally. Budget fights also influence external behavior. From the outside, companies may appear cautious or slow-moving. Expansion plans are phased. Capital spending is staged. Announcements feel muted. Internally, these choices are intentional. Leaders are prioritizing survivability and control over speed. Another important change is how success is measured. When budgets are contested, leaders care less about how impressive an initiative sounds and more about how defensible it is. Can it survive scrutiny? Can it survive a downturn? Can it survive a forecast miss? This favors priorities that stabilize earnings and cash flow rather than stretch projections. Over time, these decisions compound. Companies become more resilient but less flashy. Strategy decks align more closely with actual spending. The gap between aspiration and execution narrows. That gap used to hide a lot of inefficiency. What's happening in 2026 is that budgets are forcing honesty. When resources are limited, companies can't pretend everything is equally important. They have to choose. Those choices reveal true priorities. Internal budget fights aren't temporary. Even if growth improves, the memory of scarcity remains. Leaders who've been forced to make painful trade-offs don't forget how quickly conditions can change. That memory reshapes behavior long after the pressure eases. How internal budget fights are reshaping company priorities ultimately comes down to one truth. Money reveals values. In an environment where capital is no longer automatic, companies are being forced to decide what really matters. Not in theory, in dollars. In 2026, the loudest strategies aren't the ones shaping the future. The quiet budget decisions are. And inside those budget rooms, corporate priorities are being rewritten one trade-off at a time.